My name is Philip Price, and I get to introduce to you the technology portion. Turn it over to Angela to do all the details. I am the CFO for the Department of Public Instruction, and also technology is fortunately in my area also. So today, we're going to talk a little bit about stuff you already know about. Why are we investing in using technology? Everyone knows that technology is a wonderful tool. It's not the solution, it is just a tool to help us reach our goals. It's a good way of getting more information to help us understand how to deliver the instruction. It is a way of making education more engaging to our students and to the teachers. It enables us to connect to everywhere and be able to do pretty much go anywhere that we need to go. And we can also use it to individualize what kind of instruction is necessary to make every student understand. Now, one of the ways we're going to do that with the Race to the Top grant is implement something called the Instructional Improvement System, or commonly referred to as the IIS. Now, one of the things that is very important is to understand, to have a successful implementation of an instructional improvement system, we're going to have to make sure 3 different processes work. If any of these 3 processes do not work, then we're not going to have a successful implementation. First thing we got to make sure we do is, why does the teacher hit the enter key? In other words, what's the purpose of going to this system? Second most important thing is, when you hit enter, something comes back. It actually works, instead of just sits there and times out. And finally, you got to have something to hit enter on. So you have to have quality digital devices that enable everyone to be able to use it. And again, if any of these do not work, then we're not going to have a successful implementation. So, how are we going to make sure that they all do work? Excellent question. We have to make sure it's a shared responsibility, and we got to figure out what that relationship is and how we do share. We got to make sure we stay focused on the actual objectives. We got to form partnerships, and we got to be very organized. Now, if you start looking at the 3 different points, knowing why you hit enter, we already have a very good relationship with school districts, a very good partnership. Kimberly's area works with you closely. We have a lot of different people working with you with different staff development opportunities. But there's got to be a lot more sharing. There's got to be a lot more resources. How are we able to redirect resources to make it a priority of the staffing that's necessary in the schools? I don't see a whole large amount of money coming down to our public schools. But I do see that we have resources that we can prioritize, and we can form partnerships that hopefully is going to help us and will help us make this all happen. The shared services, or will it work when you press enter, we'll get to in just a second. The digital devices, we've got to make sure that everybody has a good quality, equitable distribution of digital devices to make sure that everybody, students and teachers, have a way of utilizing and accessing the system. We don't need a device that works only on some of the systems. We need a device that can integrate into all the different, can work with NCPDI, can work with the system. In other words, we don't need you to have 50 different devices like I carry around. We have to make sure that one device works. We also need to understand that finding enough funding for the state to successfully implement this as a separate allotment stream is probably not going to be occurring. However, we can figure out ways of prioritizing and utilizing the resources. How do we better address the funding we already have to make sure that it can be used to help us implement these systems, this instructional improvement system, which is extremely important. Looking at interconnections, right now, this is making sure it works. If you look at the current system, it's really mostly an LEA-driven system. We do have E-rate. We do have connectivity funding, which made sure that there was good pipes going into every school. But then the networks within the school, the support of those networks, and all that cost of those processes has definitely been an LEA driven. The state's going to have to pick up, and especially with Race to the Top funding, and then as we move forward, and our support to make sure that the cloud, the access to the different systems, the connections within the schools, the support is out there to make sure that we all can have a successful system. So we're going to be concentrating on getting more up to speed, working closer with you to make sure that we stand forward and we are much more of a partner as we move forward. And just really to recap, again, it cannot be a successful implementation unless we know why we're hitting enter, that it works whenever you do hit enter, and that you actually have something to work from. So we're going to do everything we can. We're going to form teams that are going to make sure that each of those different processes are successful, because one thing that we are going to make sure is that the instructional improvement system, which Angela is getting ready to go over, Dr. Quick, right now, is going to be an amazing tool that everybody is going to really enjoy utilizing. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. It's important to note that everything Philip just went over should happen behind the scenes. And we all know how frustrating it is if you press enter and it doesn't work. That is probably the most frustrating aspect of what he talked about. So the reason why we coupled the technology partnership that Philip was speaking about to the instructional improvement system is because everything that we're discussing today, from content standards to new assessments, benchmark, formative, and summative, to our new accountability model, tutorials, performance, explanation, communication tools, and then Dr. Garland and Dr. Johnson will talk about the teacher evaluation and teacher effectiveness work. All of this work that you're hearing about today, the goal is for it to live in the instructional improvement system, so that teachers will not have to, teachers and school leaders will not have to remember 50 passwords for all the different things, and be able to go through a single portal with secure rights to access the things that you need on a daily basis, like NCYs or IEP, CCAS information, or whatever that may be. So understand that in talking about an instructional improvement system, the whole goal is around the aspect of personalized student learning. That has been a goal of our state superintendents for the past 3 years, is to really make sure we have tools at the school and LEA level to be able to accomplish this feat. And so what we're planning on doing is the same formative benchmark assessments, content, curriculum maps aligned to the Common Core and essential standards, teacher evaluation rubric tools. All of that information will be there to facilitate the teaching and learning process for the student, for the teacher, but also for the student in general. And then obviously the instructional improvement system will need to have information and data linking to our longitudinal database, or CEDARS, looking at EOC or EOG scores previously to combine with the formative and benchmark assessment information, so that you have a clear picture of how students are performing. So this slide just basically gives you a 20,000-foot level of what kind of resources will actually live in the instructional improvement system. And today we're not going into great detail. We just wanted to pique your interest, and we will be doing webinars and more focus groups around the state for the next couple of months. But the instructional improvement system will be able to provide complete learner profiles, not just about academic data, but about demographic data too, attendance, discipline records. So all of this kind of information can be complete when looking at a student in their high performance or performance that needs to be improved. The instructional resources, definitely around Common Core and essential standards. The goal is to share these across the state, but there's also some work going on at the department that will be able to share instructional units, curricular pacing guides, learning maps across other states that are involved in the Common Core work. So not only just North Carolina best practices, but other states' best practices. We mentioned the interim and the formative assessment tools that we're building out and refreshing constantly. And then also our summative assessments would be deployed through this tool. And then PD resources, all of our professional development modules, and opportunities for professional development, in addition to teacher and principal evaluation, would roll out within this particular tool, so that if a teacher wants to, and a recommendation engine, hopefully, that can say if you're not performing or if you need help in one aspect of your content or curriculum, it can make suggestions on professional development opportunities that are available and upcoming. And then obviously analytics and dashboards to visualize all this data and to help students be responsible for their learning trajectory, and then also teachers in general. And so as you can see, this one-stop shop is going to be a mammoth project, but we're excited because this is partnership with the cloud, and then also with our Race to the Top, the C3 section of Race to the Top. So if I were you, I'd be saying, when is this thing going to happen? And let's talk about timelines really quickly. We are excited that about 3 weeks ago, we released the Master RFP, Request for Proposal. Obviously, DPI cannot build this thing on our own. And so we have released a request for proposal for vendors to submit so that we can partner together, many vendors, to work towards creating this. And in the early stages, we will be in design mode and build, hopefully in August. And that is if the evaluation process of the RFP and our decisions around partners move forward. So in the master, for you in general, you will start seeing small pilots of the instructional improvement system live in early 2013, and then we will begin a rollout process in 13-14. I think it's important for us to remember that for those of us that were in the field when NCWISE rolled out, this is very different. NCWISE was a technology tool that mainly handled demographic information about students and grades and that type of information. This is going to also have instructional materials and content and professional development. So we're going to have to, the professional development is going to have to be embedded so that you're not only learning how to manage the technology or the tool, but you're learning how to utilize the tools that are living within the tool, or the resources that are living within the tool.